All right, welcome to the discussion for Math 126, Section 1.6. 1.6 is on modeling with equations. Had a few questions asked in the discussions. So people asked for question 1, 2, and 3 between both classes. 1, 2, and 3 are very similar, so I'm going to do number 2 because the numbers look a little bit uglier in that problem. So let's take a look at number 2. The bank customer places a total of $18,000 split between two accounts. And they're both simple interest. Okay. And the first account earns 3.5%. Interest, and the second one earns 4.25%. After a year, the combined interest of the two accounts was $727.50. Okay. All right. How much money was invested at each rate? Okay. So we want to know how much money is in account 1, how much money is in account 2, right? So account 1, I'm just going to say there was X dollars put into account 1. I don't know how much that is, but what I do know is that if there's X dollars in account 1 and I have 18,000 total, then the difference between those two is what's in account 2, and so that tells me that I have 18,000 minus X dollars in account 2, right? So that's the amount. The other thing that we need to know is what simple interest is, and that is interest is P, the principal, multiplied by the rate, multiplied by the amount of time that goes in there. Now we're nice and fortunate here that our time is 1 year, and so this is P times R times 1 in our case, which simplifies down to just P times R, right? It's the principal times that rate because it's only 1 year. So the overall governing equation here is that the total interest of the two accounts came up to $727.50, right? The total interest is the interest from account 1, which I'm going to write as I1, the interest from account 1, plus the interest from account 2, right? I have two different interests because I have two different accounts, and so the total is then still 727.5. I'm going to drop the 0 because we're now into math. We don't need the 50 cents to be a 50. And all I have to do is figure out an expression for the interest from account 1, which is the principal of account 1 multiplied by the rate of account 1, right? Whereas the interest from account 2 would be then the principal from account 2 times the rate of account 2, right? And that's all it is those products. And so the principal from account 1 is X, that's how much was put in there, multiplied by the rate, which is 3.5, which is 0.035, right? 3.5 is like 3.5. It's a percent, and if I write that as a decimal, that's 0.035. So times 0.035. Plus the interest from account 2, which is 18,000 minus X multiplied by the rate, which is 0.0425. And that equals 727.5. Now I've created my equation. I'm at the bottom of my board, so clearly I'm going to erase all of this to go up. Pause it if you need to write this, because here it goes. I'm going to write this 0.035 in front of my x, because that's just how I'm accustomed to writing it. 0.035x. Plus, and I can take this 0.0425 and distribute it through, right? So I will, because it's easy to do that. Still my calculator here. 18,000 times 0.0425 gives me 765. And then it's minus that 0.0425 times x. So 0.0425x equals 727.5. I can combine like terms. I have negative 0.035x minus 0.0425. That gives me a negative 0.0075. Still plus the 765 equals 727.5. Okay, subtract 765 from both sides. That leaves me with this negative 0.0075x equals, I don't know what that is. -37.5 negative. And clearly I'm using a calculator. I'm cheating because I don't want to do this stuff in front of my head, especially on camera, because if I mess it up, then you'd be like, hey, my idiot math teacher can't do subtraction. But it's not easy, so leave me alone. But I've got this here, and I've got to divide from both sides. So I divide that, negative 0.0075, and divide negative 0.0075. This one's easy, because it's being divided by itself, leaving me with 1, and I have x. And then over here, the negative cancels with the negative, and I end up with, divide by 0.0075 is 5,000. And I had said that x was the amount that was put in the 3.5% interest account. So that's 5,000 in that account. The other account is this 18,000 minus x. So I take 18,000 minus the 5,000, which is 13,000. And so I get 13,000. This is in the 3.5% account, and this is in the 4.25% account. And that's the way it's split. Okay. Good. Let's take a look at number 4. Says a rental company charges $50 per day. And 20 cents per mile. So that is $0.20 per mile. Okay. To rent a car, if Andy rents a car for 4 days, so we're renting for 4 days, and his total bill is $251.20. How many miles did he drive, right? So there's kind of two variables here, but one is handed to us, right? How many days does he have the car and how far does he drive the car? But we know he has it for 4 days. The only thing that's left to find out is how far he drives it. So our equation here is that his total bill came to $251.20, right? And again, I'm going to drop the zero because we're in math world, not money world anymore, right? The total, though, came from his daily charge plus mileage. Right? The daily charge is $50 per day multiplied by 4 days, so I already know that. It's $50 a day multiplied by 4 days, plus his mileage, which is 20 cents per mile, so 0.2, I'm going to drop that 0.2, times, I don't know, call it X, call it M, pick a Greek letter, whatever, throw it in there. This equals 251.2. And that's my equation, right? 50 times 4, I know that, that's 200. Plus my 0.2x equals 251.2. Subtract my 200. 0.2x equals 51.2. Right? And if I divide each side by 0.2, 0.2, getting towards the bottom of my screen here, but that gives me my x isolated on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I get 255 plus one more, so 256. And that should be my answer there. So, how far did he drive? 256 miles. Again, I would stress that it's important that you know how to do these problems. Me coming up here and doing them is all well and good, but you know, go into homework after a couple of hours and see if you can recreate that without looking at my notes. Otherwise, come test time, you might be in trouble. So make sure you can do these on your own without, you know, without watching me do it, essentially. Let's take a look at number 5. Fred makes 15% more. Then Jerry. Not that it matters, Jerry though. Right. And this problem, I think, was the most asked question. Combined, they earn $129,000 per year. Okay. How much does each person make? Okay. So because Fred makes something compared to Jerry, I'm going to say that Jerry makes X dollars, right? And if Jerry makes X dollars, Fred making 15% more than him is what he makes, right, the X, plus 0.15 more than that. So that is to say that Fred makes what Jerry makes plus 15% in addition to that, right? Which I can rewrite this as 1.15x, right? And I think this right here is key to the problem. Obviously, you need to be able to do this, but I think this is where most people will stumble, right? But it's x plus 15% more than x, so plus that 0.15, which is 1.15x. Is that still on my screen? Yes, all right. So if I write this, combined they earn $129,000. That is to say what Fred makes, which is 1.15 1.15x plus what Jerry makes, which is the other x, what Fred makes plus what Jerry makes is a total of $129,000. So 1.15x plus another x is 2.15x. And all I have to do here is divide each side by 2.15. Right? And I've solved for x. X is 60,000. Probably. I don't know. I'm checking that one. 129 divided by 2.15, 60,000, right? And that's what Jerry makes. Jerry makes $60,000. Fred makes 1.15 that, right? Or the difference, if you will, between 129,000 and that. In either case, if I take it and say 1.15x, that's 1.15 multiplied by 60,000, which is $69,000. So Fred makes $69,000. Make sure you put these answers in the correct slots, because Fred is in the answers below it says Fred first and then Jerry, so make sure you're putting the 69,000 for Fred, 60,000 for Jerry. Good. And then 6 and 7 were asked, and 6 and 7 are similar. So let's take a look at, let's look at 7. A nurse needs a 10% concentration, as much of it as she can get. Of whatever it is, saline. Okay. She has a stock (8 pints of 5%). And unlimited 30%. So if she's making as much as she can, she's going to use every last bit of this 8 pints and then match up whatever is necessary from the unlimited stock to turn it into a 10%. And that's as much as she can get, right? So that's what she has up here is 8%, 5%, unlimited 30%, and she needs as much as she can get of a 10% solution, right? Now the idea here is, again, that we have a saline solution. I have 8 pints of a 5% solution, right? Which means I just have this little tiny bit of salt that's in the bottom of this. If it were to separate out, right, it doesn't. Otherwise, pumping this into your body, bad idea. But I've got that much salt, right? Saline salt, right? Plus, however much I get out of this 10% solution, so it's a little more, but I don't know how much, X pints, right? I don't know how much to use of my 30% solution. Oh, it's a 30%, so it's going to be more than that. Doesn't matter, that, right? But I'm mixing these two together to create as much, and I don't know how much this is, but I want to create as much of a 10% solution as I can get. So it's 10% is salt. But if I'm adding 8 pints to an unknown amount, I know that this is going to be 8 plus that unknown amount. That's how much is here. Right? So I have volumes. 8 pints, an unknown number of pints, and then 8x plus 8, right? And then I have these concentrations as well. 5%, 30%, 10%. The idea here is that the amount of salt that comes from here added to the amount of salt that comes from here has to be equal to the amount of salt that ends up here, right? So I'm going to write my equation up here. If you want to pause this, pause, because here it goes. The amount of salt that is in this first one is the volume multiplied by its concentration, so that is 8 pints multiplied by 5%, which is 0.05. Okay. I'm going to add that to the amount of salt that's here, which is an unknown volume, but I know the percentage is 0.3. And that has to be equal to the amount of salt here, which is the volume, which is 8 plus x, multiplied by its concentration, which is 0.1. Right? And I have my equation. It's too bad I couldn't write it straight. But I can multiply these, right? 8 times 0.05 is 0.4 plus 0.3x equals. I can distribute the 0.1 through. 0.1 times 8 is 0.8. Distribute it through to give me 0.1x. I'm going to move all of my x's to the left. I'll subtract 0.1x minus 0.1x. My x's are now all to the left, so I'm going to subtract 0.4 to get all of my numbers in the right. And that leaves me with 0.2x equals 0.4. Get rid of my lovely bags of salt here. Divide each side by 0.2. Yoink, yoink, x equals 2. And that's it. I need 2 pints of the 30% solution. And that's all I can get. All right, thank you. Hope that's helpful. And I will see you guys for 1.7.